Good afternoon, and welcome to the March regular meeting of the Calgary Police Commission. I call this meeting to order and ask that everyone ensure your microphones are muted until you need to speak. My name is Amtul Siddiqui, and I'm the chair of the commission. I'm joined today by Commissioners Kelly Ogle, Sean Cornett, Susan Mallon, Cherie Nyson-Jordan, Sam Hope, Ayo Adidaran, Aaron Noga, Marcia Hansen, Robert Tengay, and Councillors Jennifer Wyness and Terry Wong. Today's Calgary Police Service representatives are led by Chief Constable Mark Neufeld. On his behalf, Superintendent Rashid, would you please introduce those you expect to speak during today's meeting?
Good afternoon, Chair, members of Commission. Thank you for hosting us today. There are a number of CPS delegates who will be speaking. For matters of brevity, I'll introduce those at the table here. From left to right, we have Executive Director Rory Thompson, Chief People Officer Kim Armstrong, Senior Finance Officer Sabina Lokantz, Deputy Chief Chad Tofik, Chief Mark Neufeld, Deputy Chief Katie McClellan, Deputy Chief Corey Daly, Deputy Chief Raj Gill, Executive Director Catherine Murphy, and Director Mike Nunn. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. For those not familiar with our role, our commission is a body of 10 community members and 2 city councillors appointed by the City Council and the Government of Alberta. We provide independent citizen governance and oversight of the Calgary Police Service on behalf of all Calgarians. To protect the political neutrality of the police, Alberta's Police Act requires that the police chief report directly to us instead of elected officials. We provide direction to the police through the chief, police policies, monitoring the police complaint process, and approval of how the police budget is spent. Today is one of 8 regular meetings we have each year to openly discuss police governance and oversight matters with the service's leadership and to hear from the public. We also have several private monthly committee meetings where commissioners work more directly with the service on various matters that cannot be discussed publicly. Our commission is meeting today on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, made up of the Sissegaug, Kainai, and Piikani First Nations. It's also home to the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Iarhe Nakota people of the Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Goodstoney First Nations. These are the people who made a treaty with the Crown, forming Treaty 7 territory. Calgary is also homeland to the Otipemisiwak Métis government of the Métis Nation within Alberta. Our commission is committed to doing our part to support reconciliation with all Indigenous people, condemns racism and prejudice in all forms, and is committed to being anti-racist. As we start our meeting, allow me to provide a brief overview of the format for those joining us for the first time. The public session of this meeting is being live streamed and a recording will be posted online so we can make it available to those unable to attend. There will be several presentations from the Calgary Police Service, commission members, and commission staff. Commissioners will have the chance to speak, ask questions, or make comments after each one. Once we have completed the presentations, we will move to the public participation portion of the meeting. Those who are registered to speak will then be called on by name and will have a chance to either ask a question or make a presentation for our consideration. Following the public participation, we will close the public meeting with the chief and I taking questions from the media. Everyone is welcome to observe the media availability, but only media professionals can participate. To start our meeting, I will ask for the agenda to be approved. Does any member of the commission wish to request an amendment to the agenda? Hearing no request, can I please get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Commissioner Ogle and Commissioner Mallon. Can I get all those in favor? Thank you. I will now call for declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest from the commissioners. Hearing no declarations, I will now ask for approval of the consent agenda. For those viewing today's meeting, the consent agenda is a list of routine items and reports that all commissioners agree can be accepted without more discussion or a separate vote. Does any member of the commission wish to request an item on the consent agenda be brought forward for a discussion? Hearing none, I declare the consent agenda approved. To open my chair's report, I would like to take a moment to send our best wishes to those marking religious holidays this month. March begins the beginning of Lent for many Christians, and that will lead into Good Friday and Easter later next month. Since we do not meet in April, please allow me to wish all those who celebrate an early happy Easter season. I also want to wish Calgary's Muslim community a blessed Eid at the end of this month as Ramadan ends. To everyone who marks it, Eid Mubarak. March was a busy month for our commission. We started it by holding our second Calgary Policing Summit, which brought together over 350 community and government leaders to talk about policing in our city. The summit this year was focused on the work to create safer public spaces. We heard a lot of great feedback on what is working and where more needs to be done to address crime and social disorder across Calgary. The presentations from the summit are now available on our website, and our staff are working to create a report of what we heard that will also be shared publicly. Thank you to everyone that took time to participate in this important event. On March 18th, Chief Neufeld and I appeared before City Council to discuss a $28 million shortfall in the police budget that resulted from changes to provincial automated traffic enforcement regulations. It would have been impossible to manage the shortfall without impacts to staffing levels and the services provided to Calgarians. Our commission and council approved funding for 130 new police officer positions between 2022 and 2026 because this growth is badly needed. We are happy that council decided to provide up to $28 million in new funding to cover the shortfall so this growth hiring can proceed. Council also accepted our recommendation that all fine revenue be removed from the police budget and be replaced with other funding sources. Fine revenue in the police budget hurts public trust in policing, undermines officer morale, and can put undue influence on enforcement decisions. We are pleased that Calgary will be ending this practice next year. Several members of our commission also had the opportunity this month to attend a meet and greet with the Calgary Consular Corps at police headquarters. The event was a great chance to connect with diplomatic representatives from around the world and to talk about policing in Calgary. Commissioners and officers from the service also took the opportunity to attend a couple of different iftar dinners with members of the Muslim community. Participating in events like these give us a chance to connect with Calgarians and learn about all the different cultural groups in the community. Thank you to the organizers of these events for including us. Finally, we also had two members of our commission participate in the Polar Plunge, an annual event that raises funds for Special Olympics in Alberta. It was a great event for a great cause. To end my chair's report, I want to again highlight just a few of the ways members of the Calgary Police Service have delivered on the priorities of Calgarians. Officers in the Downtown Core launched the Safer Calgary Initiative, where they are partnering with the City of Calgary police officers, AHS clinicians, and partner agencies like the Alpha House. The partners are all working together to address crime and social disorder in hotspots, particularly downtown and along transit routes. The work has been very successful so far, with 230 charges being laid, over 1,400 arrest warrants being fulfilled, and over 1,100 referrals to social agencies being made. The team has also made it a priority to connect with businesses in the area and have so far visited almost 1,200. Thank you to everyone involved in the Safer Calgary Initiative. We know that crime and social disorder is a concern for many Calgarians, and it's good to see the progress you are making. Homicide investigators also showed their determination again this month, laying charges in homicides from 2022, 2023, and 2024. These cases are examples of how detectives do not give up and continue working cases for years to try to hold those who commit violence accountable. Traffic investigators also showed a similar determination as they laid charges in a fatal hit-and-run collision that occurred in Forest Heights last May. In other cases, investigators laid charges against a teen who robbed a series of cannabis stores, an armed robbery of a gas station, and a drugstore robbery. Robbery is a very serious crime that makes people feel unsafe in their workplaces. The service is doing good work to try to stop this crime, and we are grateful to those who help bring charges in these cases. Finally, I want to congratulate all members of the service who received the King Charles III Coronation Medals, including Chief Neufeld and Superintendent Rashid. Members from across the service have received this honor, and it's a testament to the value placed on your work by the community. Thank you to all members of the Calgary Police Service for your work this past month to keep Calgarians safe. With that, I will close my chair's report. Can I please get a motion to accept this report for information? Thank you, Commissioner Hanson and Commissioner Cornett. Anyone opposed? We will now move on to the presentations from the Calgary Police Service, starting with the presentation on the Calgary Police Service's Strategic Partnerships Report. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the kind comments and acknowledgement of the good work being done across the service by the members and our partners. Very much the case. Grateful also for the advocacy and the hard work done by members of the Commission in the important areas that you mentioned during your report. It's been certainly a busy month, to be sure. There is 5.1 is the Strategic Partnerships Report. Obviously, this is a very important area of the service doing very impactful work. This is now a biannual report, I believe, and I am pleased to turn it over to Deputy Chief Daly to introduce the presentation and the speakers.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commission. And I know in the interest of time, I'll be expeditious with my comments to allow time for questions about the incredibly important division. So Strategic Partnerships Division is made up of the Youth Services section, Community Services section, and the Social Policing section at a broad level. I've prepared some comments today. I'm here today to provide an update on the service's Strategic Partnerships Division in this first biannual report under the new reporting mechanism with the CPC. Earlier this month, the full report was presented to the Policing Services Committee. As this is the first comprehensive report of its kind, I want to be quite honest and transparent that the length of the report and the detail of the report is also to support the new leadership team within the organization, as it was pretty much a full transition within that back in early November. So as we're diving into the division and learning all of the ins and outs of the way the division works and how it impacts the community, it's important for us to report back on that and understand where it's been and where we're going in 2025. So I appreciate the length of the report, and I'm here to speak very high detail based on some feedback from the subcommittee meeting, and I'll focus on a few key areas today. First, I would like to recognize some of the team that's with me today. Superintendent Smart, Business Strategist Carrie Rack, Inspector Jessica, Inspector Bowers, Staff Sergeant Warren, the Community Youth Strategist, Josh Landsmark, and Inspector Forzen, who should be joining us online. So they'll be available for questions on the report after I say my comments. The overview today will cover the Hate Crime Prevention Team expansion, the Crime Prevention Team and Organized Retail Crime Response, a brief update on CISA funding and what we'll be doing in 2025-2026, some youth highlights, and then a brief discussion on diversion. To focus on the Hate Crime Prevention Team expansion, we've added a new constable position that was established in late 2024, which we've actualized in early 2025. So community engagement constable focuses on building relationships with community members, and that was always in place, but they were also being utilized to investigate and work through all aspects of hate crime. We've now advanced to an investigations constable responsible for investigating hate-motivated incidents and hate crimes within Calgary. This clearly delineates the roles for community engagement investigations. Both constable positions have been filled and are actively working now on investigations and within the community, and we have a sergeant position that will be posted and filled in Q2 of 2025, rounding out the complement of the team. The hate crimes team since 2021 has investigated more than 300 files annually. We recognize that hate-motivated crimes and incidents frequently go underreported. With our new team in place, or the enhanced team in place, we'll collaborate with Strategic Communications to relaunch the Report in Hate campaign. This campaign aims to ensure both victims and witnesses of hate crimes or incidents, we understand the importance of reporting and that we do go underreported, and we're hoping to increase that in Calgary. Crime prevention team and organized retail crime. We also heard about this at the recent summit that was mentioned already today. This is not a new, but this is a very prevalent issue for our retail sector within Calgary and all citizens within the community. So because of that, we've created an organized retail crime task force. It's a joint effort between the Bureau of Community Policing and the Bureau of Service and Community Support. And we're working with local partners inclusive of the Crown Prosecution Service, Retail Council of Canada, loss prevention, retailers, and social partners. And I believe Inspector Jessica will be able to answer more detailed questions with respect to it. But in just conversations here right before, we're facing or looking at laying 67 charges already in just the first 6 weeks of the team being actualized. A quick update on CISA funding. I know we reported on this earlier in 2025, but based on the 2025 and 2026 spending, we'll be focusing on existing gaps and initiatives that improve police interaction with people in crisis. To date, approximately 4 million has been allocated for 2025 out of the 8, and approximately 6 million for 2026 already. A fulsome spending plan is being developed for the remainder of 2025 and 2026. Our current highlights are the help team's upcoming expansion, missing persons unit, Indigenous navigator, improving community relationships was extended, Distress Center Calgary's upcoming Make the Right Call campaign, and a program of note around action table, the positive perceptions and relationships with the CPS and the action table partner organizations, working closely with CERT, HSU coordinators, and district and specialty units. For youth highlights, there was a response to a motion from the CPC in September of 2024 to provide an update on the School Resource Officer Reimagination Project. To date, 18 of 46 recommendations have been successfully and fully completed, with 65% of the overall project work ongoing and completed. Of note, the newly implemented School Resource Officer app is in place and captures metrics on student impacts. The app includes daily activities of the SROs that also make up a dashboard that can be reviewed daily and is updated consistently, including student meetings, parent meetings, presentations, along with any charges, diversions, etc., that school resource officers are engaged in. CPS youth engagement prevention programs encompass redirect, youth at risk development, which is YARD, and multi-agency school support team being MAST. Moving on to diversion. So youth diversion team in 2024, 1,047 youths diverted. 54% of youths involved in crime have been diverted. More than 90% of youth successfully complete the programs that they're assigned to. The Calgary Drug Treatment Court performed 71 risk assessments completed by CPS. 29 individuals were admitted into the Calgary Drug Treatment Court program, with 16 participants successfully graduating the program. 76% of graduates had no new or substantive convictions. This is based on a report from 2020, and I know there's been questions asked in the past, and we're undergoing a new review right now with the Calgary Drug Treatment Court. It's underway, and we hope to report back the statistics in late 2025 or into 2026. Moving on to the Calgary Indigenous Court, we have 247 active participants. 50 participants have completed their healing programs, and a staggering 87% of participants do not reoffend in the 12 months following their completion of the program, which is excellent results with the work of those teams. With that, I know that's a high-level update. I've got the commanders here and people with the team, and I'll move on to, first off, Staff Warren will join us. He's going to give a brief overview of diversion and how it works with the Calgary Police and through the courts, so we have a fulsome understanding of the diversion program. So,
hello, thank you everybody for having me here today. So my name is Staff Sergeant Chris Warren, and I'm with the Restorative Justice Unit. Currently, right now, the Calgary Police Service supports youth or restorative justice measures by 3 courts that we support, which is youth diversion, our drug treatment court, as well as our Calgary Indigenous Court. Now, youth diversion actually falls under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, which states that we as police officers have to look at diversion measures before we go to criminal code charges. So this is supported by community programs. So currently, right now, all programming goes through the Calgary Youth Justice Committees, which consists of 30 different programs. So there's 2 streams. Community programs is kind of the earlier intervention. EJS, or extrajudicial sanctions. I'll get that right. Sorry, there we go. Well, we have to have Crown pre-approval in order to lay those charges. So earlier on in the year, we were actually having 20% of the files sent back. So we actually were able to work with the Chief Justice, Crown Prosecutor, and really it was a big learning curve of what these community programs look like. We looked at doing a pilot project of, he had 14 that he was looking at really sending back to regular measures. And we actually just got it back that 13 of the 14 actually successfully completed the programming that was set out for them. So when the youth sits down with the committee here, there's no it's not one size fits all. It's a 2-hour interview with the family and the youth, and they look at where this child needs supports, and then they develop the plan accordingly. So as Deputy Daly said, right now we're working 92% recidivism rate with young youth that go through programming. So it's so far super successful. Now our Calgary Indigenous Court is making huge strides with the Indigenous community. Currently there's about 154 participants in there. And as Deputy Daly said, 87.4% of participants that are actively engaged in a healing plan aren't committing crimes. So right now we have an officer that sits in there every Wednesday, and then every Tuesday, they also sit on 3 different committees, working with case management, working with Homefront and the victims, as well as working with our CERT team and high systems users to actively try and work to support the individuals out in the community, as well as getting them back into courts if they need those extra added supports. So our drug treatment court consists of 1 officer as well. There's currently 34 active participants in drug treatment court and 15 that are actively monitored post-graduation in the community. As Deputy Daly mentioned, that our officer, for every applicant that comes in, we do a full risk assessment to ensure that they're suitable for the program and that the program is able to best suit them. That's a high kind of overview of them. We are working on a lot of initiatives with our SRO group as well to look to, instead of officers providing warnings to youths, that we will look to divert to community programs in hope that we don't. Right now we have a trend that's looking like we will give the youth, warning, and then we end up charging them. So I'm hoping that with earlier intervention into community programs that we won't see these youths end up being charged. So currently I have a file review officer that is reviewing all youth files that our Calgary police officers have interaction with, in hopes to divert as many as we can through community programs.
Thanks very much, Chris. And then with that, we'll move to general questions.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Daly, and thank you to you and your team for that report. I'll go to my colleagues for questions now. Commissioner Mallon.
Right. I'm not sure where it is in the report. There was 48 pages, but when I was reading it, one of the things that I was really pleased to read was the roles that have been asked for, I guess, by the external ARAC committees and are being supported, some of them about recruitment and various things like that. So how will that work? Like, one of the concerns that committees have in the past expressed is that they're not so sure that, they get things presented to them rather than them presenting back. And so how might this work in the future? Because it was good stuff that they were going to work on.
For sure. Inspector Jessica.
Yeah, I can speak to that, Commissioner. Thank you for that question. We've come to realize through some consultation with our advisory boards, both our anti-racism action committee ones and the ones that represent 10 different communities across the city, that we have lacked a legitimate terms of reference in relation to not only a reporting structure upwards and then back down to the boards, but in relation to what we were specifically looking for from those groups. And so we are in the process right now, in fact, we're in version 3 of it, of drafting a suitable terms of reference where we can actually have mandates and conditions in place in relation to how those boards actually function. And so the next step is for us to go back to our advisory boards and to work alongside them to finalize those recommendations, because if they're providing us insight or guidance or recommendations, we have an onus to provide written feedback within a specific period of time in relation to whether we can or can't action those recommendations. And the second portion of that is actually utilizing them for their full purpose, which includes us consulting with them on matters. In fact, just recently, our regimental sergeant major has been speaking with them in relation to some alterations that have happened to the uniform and using them as a sounding board to make sure that we're getting the right feedback from the community. So in short, we've lacked structure previously over the last number of years, and we're looking to bring that back, not only in relation to how we report to each other, but also how people get on the boards, the length of time that they stay on them, and their formalized roles within those boards themselves.
Commissioner Cornett.
I just say it's awesome work, and the whole concept of diversion and trying to get ahead of having to actually charge kids or young adults or even older adults is the way to go. I'm curious because there's so many different programs and so many places where people come in. You've commented on various officers and constables and such who do this work. Is there a way that we as commission can have kind of a measure of how many officers, part-time, full-time, or whatever, that do this kind of work, so that when we talk about, 50 new officers here or whatever, we know how much of this is preventative? And then I was thinking, well, maybe it's part of the proactive work that you try and set aside time for. But how do we make this into a concept that has a general measure to it so that we can talk to council or communities or whatever, that this is, 10% of your time overall is being used, and this is how many people we've kept out of the courts, kind of thing? I don't know, it's kind of a simplistic question, but it would be really helpful to tell the story, I think, a little bit farther than all of the details that are here.
Thank you, Commissioner Cornett. I hope I can answer this correctly. If I misinterpret it, maybe clarify it for me. But so right now with our youth diversion, we only have one officer that looks after all the files. So currently, right now, when officers want to divert a youth, we have a form on our interweb, and they'll send it right to our officers, or right to our officer, and they will submit it to the Calgary Youth Justice Committees for review. And then the Calgary Youth Justice Committee will then reach out to the youth and the youth's family. Now with the EJS one, so it's a bit unique, is if the young person doesn't complete the sanctions that were listed by the panel there for the offense that they committed, we have the ability then to go back afterwards and lay the criminal code charge and then divert them back into the I guess regular mainstream with that.
I think, thanks, Chris. I think this came up in a little bit of feedback at the last report on the PSC. I wasn't there. You're looking for the specific times officers, because we have frontline officers deal with diversion, then we have our diversion programs to redirect, yard, mast. I think you're referring to all of the cumulative efforts that go into diversion across the sectors through SROs, the programs we have, and then the programs our officers would participate under, those 29 CP programs as well. Just to clarify, that's what you're looking for?
Yeah, and I guess I would have to leave because I'm not sure I comprehend the whole complexity of it all. Yeah. But even the Indigenous court, and I mean, all of those take time and effort from individuals, and yet and it's like calculating the value of insurance. Like you keep people out of the system, or you take them out of the frequent user group and move them on to something that's a little bit more stable. So again, I mean, I guess people have heard this years past, but those are really good stories. And I would just ask if you can think about how to crystallize them a little bit better so that we can tell them even more about how we're doing. It's not totally prevention, but it's a little bit like that. And so how do we quantify that? So
100%. I believe I know what you're talking about. We can shoot to have that and then or start telling that story better in the next report, talking about the ROI on if we divert an officer or we divert somebody from the criminal justice system, that's one more call for service. It's not on the board. That's a less impact financially to a business or a victim of crime. And that cascading impact is what you're looking for, about the efforts that go in on the front end and what that reduces or eliminates on the back. I've got that correct. Okay, thank you for sure.
Commissioner Hope.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, DC Corey and Daly and the commanders here. I just have one question, because obviously this presentation was based on strategic partnerships. I was just curious to the extent to which the partnership approach is being pursued. Is it just a matter of sharing information? Or is it something different, or is there some aspect towards where a future element there is maybe a financial partnership or component to this area? Because when we talk about strategic partnership, typically it's a 50-50. Now it feels like maybe CPS is doing a lot of the work and people are joining the effort. So I just wanted to get that clarity when we talk about strategic partnership. What does that actually look like for the service?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think, Commissioner, in my learnings in the short 5 months, I get what you're asking around the strategic partnership piece of it. And I mean, it's embedded in the very name of it. I get what you're saying. And we do lead, I'll be quite transparent. We do lead a lot of the efforts for it. CPS sits at a table with lots of partners, and lots of times we lead those efforts. I'll be transparent about it. Would we like to if it's more health-based or mental health-based, is CPS the best to lead that initiative? Maybe not. It probably isn't. But to get those programs off the ground or sustain them, lots of times we are in the leadership role for sure. Is there opportunity to move out of those into more of a 50-50 partnership? For sure. Is there opportunities to pursue, or should we be looking at financing, or should the government at provincial levels be looking at financing certain programs that are health-based? Absolutely. I think I get where you're going with that. And we'll look to that 2025, 2026 for sure with those. Good examples of those are around CSIF, with the community safety investment frameworks, and some of the things that we are invested in as a police service or spending our dollars along with our partners at the city. And some of those are definitely more health front loaded with CPS as support and our partner in that. And those could definitely be led by other agencies. And so we'll work towards that. But I do get if that's what you're getting at. Yeah, for sure.
Perfect.
So Chief.
Thank you, Chair.
Excuse me, if I could just add, Commissioner Hope, I think there's a number of programs obviously mentioned in the report, as you know, from the 48 pages. But I think it's different for some of them. If you think about sustainment and how things have evolved over time with respect to the Youth Foundation was created and stepped up and runs most of the programs and funds them. And CPS's role becomes an in-kind contribution similar to Alberta Health Services and the city. The same can be said for programs like Indigenous Court and Community Court coming online now as well. It seems like we have more of a role early with some of these things. I think now of emerging issues like Retail Crime Task Force. Again, the partnerships that we're seeing early on with Retail Crime Council of Canada and other groups locally, we're trying to keep ourselves in the policing part of it and trying to help them to do maybe the advertising and the community education and that type of thing. So I think they're all different. I think the SRO program is another one where you can see there is a request or an appetite for more involvement, and so the funding model for that going forward may need to evolve. To just sort of recognize the I guess the cost, but also the value proposition there on the side of the school boards and stuff like that. So I think they're all in different places depending on where they are. But I think the depth of the partnerships in some of them is actually really remarkable, quite frankly, and the results being achieved are actually really positive. Thank you.
Commissioner Nice-Jordan.
Thanks. This gets clear to me every time I hear it, but there's still some points that I just wanted to clarify. So one of the things, it's lovely to have it identified, all the different programs, but I'm relatively in tune with what's happening in the CPS, whereas the public wouldn't be. And you've got several youth programs. How can people, the general public, the school boards, how do they get which program to go into, and how do they get their kids into those programs? And then the second part of that leads into the wait list. Some of them have wait lists. You've identified that they're getting longer. What are you doing to triage those kids on the wait list, and what can be done while they're on the wait list? That's a problem from my perspective. Thanks.
Commissioner, I fully agree with you. It's a problem to have kids on a wait list. Like the chief just mentioned, we have very highly successful programs, and the proof is there that these programs work and they keep kids on the right path that might be going otherwise. But I know that Inspector Bowers can offer how we advertise the programs, how youth can get into them. I will also say, and maybe Colleen will mention it, we apply for every grant we can apply for to try and expand our programs outside of the resource pool that we have, and then try and partner our own resources with what we could get with temporary funding for civilian employees to come in to work alongside us. Some of those do get rejected. We don't always compete with other industries for those types of dollars, but we do try and pursue every single grant that we can to add to the resource pool around youth programming. CPYF is obviously our biggest partner in that, but we will still pursue funding outside of that to try and achieve greater capacity. But I'll turn it over to Colleen.
Thank you for the question. The CPYF is an excellent partner, obviously, for Mass Yard, Redirect, and our programs. They are really, really, really good at getting the word out about the programs. Also, we work with our partners in Mass and Yard. The schools all know, because the SROs are all familiar with it. The programs are also on our website. I believe we're trying to update it. The website does need some work. I will full disclosure there. We have to be, we're a little bit cognizant in the sense that of where the referrals come from. And the reason being is that we are a bit limited in capacity and we are being careful of our wait list. So we have with Mass, for example, the schools are all aware of the Mass program, and that is where the referrals come from. So we have had schools, they consistently are coming to us. Mass is actually okay. They currently don't have a wait list. Yard, it comes from officers, schools, social workers, Alberta Health Services, anyone that sees that they're community partners, anyone that sees that there might be a youth going into the gang or criminal life. We try to really focus on the criminal life. As far as when we're talking about that wait list, we have been, as the deputy said, we're looking at grant options. We're working with partners on how we can perhaps get youth into programs that might help them along the way. Calgary Police Youth Foundation is also working with us. It is a reality. We have to kind of make a choice. Do we tighten up our criteria for allowing youth in, but we don't want to exclude any youth. So they do get in, but we also don't want to push out any of the youth that are in the program to bring in a new one. So it is a problem that we talk about weekly to try and find options to get them into programs, but we do work to get them in there. We had applied for a grant to get, I guess I'd call it a community navigator. Unfortunately, we weren't successful for that grant, but we will pivot and try and find another person to help us with that. Yeah, it is a priority for us for sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Colleen. I'd also add our significant partnership. I think everybody here knows pretty well advertised in the community, being YouthLink. So YouthLink offers significant crime prevention program and advertising programs. We just had Calgary Youth Summit around gun and gang violence in Calgary 2 weeks ago, and they're at capacity. They have a massive waiting list themselves for grade 6 through grade 9 and adult programming to come in there to teach even parents how to crime prevent, how to work with their kids in cyber, online chatting, all of those types of components. Another example recently in speaking to the team, one of Colleen's teams around youth programming is access. So on the program such as Power Play, we have access, which is amazing. We have incredible access from Max Bell, but we could fill up another rink. We could double that capacity, and officers would volunteer time to be partake in those programs around with our civilian volunteers, but it's trying to get ice time in the city of Calgary during the winter is next to impossible. So again, it comes down to capacity. So we're even looking at rinks outside of the city and partnerships there with other law enforcement, including Satina. So there is actions on that, but it's a great question, but capacity is always the issue.
Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if you can answer this question off the cuff, but I'll ask it and I'll ask the reason why. But if we take a look at the high school kids in Calgary, do we know what percentage or what's the number of high school kids there are in that high school range relative to Calgary's population?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question? I couldn't quite hear.
Do you know how many high school children there are in Calgary relative to Calgary's overall population?
I don't have that, but I can get that number for you.
That's what I did a quick thing here, a Google thing, and it said about 50,000. So let's assume 50,000. Out of the 50,000 students that are in high school, relative to all the programs we have that we just talked about here, do we have a count of how many people are involved in a yard program, math program, so on and so forth, relative to 50,000 students? And on top of that, are we addressing the right proportion of students that are in trouble? So I guess the reason I'm getting at, when I take a look at the report itself, it tells me how many people, how many students we've dealt with through the different programs, through redirection, but it doesn't give me context to the overall population or the overall population that is in trouble. That's what I'm getting at. I can't correlate the number to how big the problem is.
So are you asking if we can obtain those numbers?
Can you help correlate that either today or in the future? What that number is relative to the overall population? Because what that leads to is the second obvious question is, are we avoiding the problem at this level or that level as a action for the future? Like, are we addressing it enough? Do we need to devote enough resources? Are we, that's what I'm trying to get to. This report doesn't tell me, it tells you what we're doing, but it doesn't tell me relative to what. And are we addressing the overall future trends?
I can take that, Inspector. Yes, I can definitely bring that back. I'll address that in the next report. And I do know what you're asking for. And I know in the interest of time, Chair, but I would add that, so this adds a bit of perspective to your question around, even if we do have that number, and when we do have that number, are we getting to enough people? Right? That's what you're getting at. Capacity becomes a significant issue. And we know that's all over the organization within the community. We currently have 38 constables, or 38 FTEs or full-time positions for SROs in schools. We're currently running 6 vacancies. We have no intention in any short term to fill that, considering where our staffing's at in other parts of the organization, but these are vital positions. This includes our S4 junior high and senior high schools. So those 32 people are dispersed over the S4 program has 6 officers dispersed over 120 schools. So they have 20 schools per officer. That's where their time is split on those 6 alone. And the impact is significant to the efforts that are put in. So CBE and CCSB have a combined 369 schools. The Palliser and Francois have a combined 11 schools. So on average, high school SROs manage 3 schools, being between junior high and high school. And the S4 is spread out over 120. So can we grow? Absolutely. Can we connect with more kids? Absolutely. So, but I'll bring back the percentages for you, Councillor.
Yeah, and perhaps if you can, at the same time, how do we compare stacked up to other major municipalities,
Some
across the
benchmarking?
city,
Yeah.
as a ratio of 1,000 population or something like that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Commissioner Ogle.
Piling on here a bit about the SROs. I see, like, in my opinion, this is a crucial plank in all of the things that, like Commissioner Neeson-Jordan asked. A lot of these situations will come from an interaction between an SRO and a student. And I see, and I think Deputy Daly, you just spoke to it, and I'm not confident that I'm going to get the right answer here. Evaluate, one of the red flags in the report is evaluate the SRO budget to develop a plan to grow the program. It sounds like it's shrinking. What's the strategy behind that? Like, and how can we change that trajectory?
Sir? Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry about the pointed question, but it just seems to me that this is, I'll just rant for a second. I'm listening to what Commissioner Neeson-Jordan said, and we've got all of these tributaries on the river. Well, this is the river.
So an answer to that is we have grown it, actually. It was reduced significantly in years past, and it was brought back under the reimagination project. And I wouldn't say it's sufficiently staffed, but we staffed it almost up to all FTEs, and we have some attrition. Just based on our current staffing numbers across the organization, we're weighing that priority, which is significant, with the front line. and where those resources need to be. The ask will come. There will be an ask to expand, I would assume, a lot of our programming over the Calgary Police Service more broadly, and we will ask for that going into the next budget cycle, and then look to fill and expand our program based on that ability to do so through a broader ask. But right now, we won't be able to expand the program.
I'll just finish with, I concur with Councillor Wong that, benchmarking against other jurisdictions would be good, especially if we're in a deficit in a pro rata basis, because that's cannon fodder for the ask and the discussion of how to go forward. If we're lacking as we are in constables per capita as we are across Canada, I'm sure the numbers are the same. Thank you.
And just to tack on there, so we're acutely aware of the pressures there and the growth in the city as well. So we're getting actually the student population that Councillor Wong, referred to is actually growing as well. So, Corey saying that the number of officers that we have now are spread over 120 schools. When you talk about 30 officers over 120 schools, the likelihood that you could give any one of them as much attention as you would like to it's a fiction. But as the commission is aware, there are a number of pressures right now that are sort of taking precedence over these programs, and not that that's right or wrong, but that's just the reality. At the end of the day, we know that there's a large social return on investment for any sort of prevention work we can do on the highways you referred to it there to keep people out of the programs. I would say that when we look at benchmarking just at a high level, in Alberta here, we're probably more invested than some organizations are. As you're aware, some of the SRO programs in some of the other communities were shut down for a period of time. Some have come back now. And the funding models in some of those are quite different than they are here. So we can bring forward the benchmarking as well. But over the last couple of years, as you can imagine, even with some of the Colleen referred to, and I think there was questions about the wait lists for some of the programs. So when we sit down at the beginning of the year, for instance, with CPYF, the last couple of years, just based on staffing and growth in the city and challenges around demand that currently exist across the organization, we're basically saying that as much as we realize there's growing population and there's growing needs, we're not going to be able to grow that this year. We're going to try to, maintain and then look at that in future years. So we're acutely aware of it, but there's just a number of pressures right now that are being balanced against one another.
So I appreciated the 48-page report. So thank you, because we did, commission did request a fulsome report. So thank you for doing that, Deputy Chief. I guess I know that commission has really championed this area over the last few years, strategic partnerships, and your predecessors did a really good job, and I'm happy to see that continuing with the new leadership team. So with that, thanks for being at community functions over the last little while, really paying attention to what the next evolution of this area is going to look like. I also appreciate the fact that you added resources to the hate crime team. I think it's sad that we need to do that, but it's a reality. So I appreciate that you recognizing that and adding those. And so I just had a couple of questions. Going back to this SRO piece and the 18 out of 65 recommendations. So when do we see a fulsome SRO report again?
So sorry, I was consulting my experts.
Totally.
Thank you, Josh. So the next report on the SRO update will come in September.
Okay.
It won't be inclusive of all 46 recommendations, but it'll be a comprehensive update. So that'll come in September. And then
Fair
we'll
enough.
also have the next SPD report in October.
Perfect.
So-
And it'll have some of that information about this new app
Yes.
that you've implemented as well?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
One of the reasons that it was restrictive on the data now is we haven't done a year of data collection. So we wanted to have all of this. We wanted to have a good collection of data to be able to bring back the ROI on the
Okay.
delivery of that.
Wonderful. And the question I had was around, you had mentioned this retail crime task force that you've put together. How do they work with your Safer Calgary group that's also been reaching out to retail people? So how does that go together?
Inspector Jessica?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. The work ends up kind of paralleling without being directly correlated. And so the Retail Crime Initiative partners with our retailers, our loss prevention officers, and those organizations, Crown prosecutors, internal units, arrest processing, and then the Retail Council of Canada. So those 5 agencies come together to kind of run the task force within CPS, which ends up kind of supplementing the other side.
So I would imagine that there's collaboration and conversations that are ongoing then regularly as these new initiatives come together.
Correct. And this initiative is very much in its infancy. We, our newest accommodated members started just a few weeks ago, and the point constables who are now dedicated to handling the online portion of organized retail crime for non-custody shopliftings. The 67 charges that the deputy refers to is just from the last 3 weeks alone. So we are still building the ship to launch it, but we look forward to getting into the water and then adding some adjustments as we sail.
Great. So we'll see that in September as well. Some
Yes.
numbers on how it's going.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, just on Travis's point there, I think they do go hand in hand, but I think the key to the organized retail task force is the word organized. So the CERT and the stuff that's being done in the community is largely public spaces. And a lot of that has to do with disorder and people who are experiencing vulnerabilities. Now, some of the shoplifting, like recurrent shoplifting and some of the challenges relate to that, but that's not necessarily organized in the sense that we're talking about organized groups that are going into various stores and basically looting and coming out. And so that's what this group is working on. So there is some overlap, but for the most part, they're focusing really more on with the retail partners around people who are organized with this. Some of them are actually recruiting vulnerable people to get involved in that. So there's some overlap, but in some ways one's focused on public spaces, the other's focused on organized retail theft in stores. Is that fair, Travis?
Yeah, that's a great explanation of that. Thank you, Chief.
Are there any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Hanson, my apologies.
I hit the wrong button. I think it's around the Indigenous court. And I think there's kind of a two-sided question here. The fact is that are the youth in Indigenous court, do they get to, are they part of that? And the other piece is that you talk about there was 100 and so many and 87% were successful. The part for me is this helping keeping some of our Indigenous people out of jail? And is it getting bigger? Because we're overpopulated in the jails with the Indigenous people. I'm just wondering, is this moving in the right direction?
That's a great question as far as looking in incarceration of Indigenous people. I'm not too sure what the stat would be on that, but you are correct. Our Indigenous court is unique to drug treatment court. There is no charges or individuals that they will turn away. So yes, we do have youth in there. We don't have a lot, but we actually work closely with our the youth diversion programs to support the youth that are in Indigenous courts, so that they can also benefit from the programming of there, in really hopes to address the root cause of their offending and ultimately get them out of the justice system.
So these kids, when they're coming out of that, are they being referred to Indigenous programs?
So programming looks like, when an individual enters into Indigenous court, they go to our partnership with Elizabeth Fry, who makes their healing plan. Now, each healing plan is unique to the individual, and is very tied to the cultural piece with it. And then the programming that they would go through, that we've supported with through the youth justice committees, is also supporting the gaps in there, that we could help the youth identify his or her strengths and then work to grow those.
Just on another note, I heard how great the Indigenous youth program was last year. Are they moving forward again with it this year?
You heard about which? Sorry, missed that one.
Yes, the Indigenous Junior Police Academy is moving forward again this year. We have our funding from the Calgary Police Youth Foundation, and we're looking to continue that program alongside Sergeant Huggins and some members of our RIT team.
Good job, because I heard in the community how well it was received by parents and by the students, so.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, the qualitative feedback was significant on that. There was lots of positive reinforcement of that program, and it aligns with our objectives that we want to keep moving forward.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, thank you for that presentation. Again, thank you for the complete report, and we look forward to seeing the next one in September. Thank you all. The next presentation on our agenda is a report on the Calgary Police Services Suitability Review Process. Please go ahead.
Chair, as you know, and as commissioners know, that despite the best efforts that we make in terms of recruiting and selection and our CCLC instructors, there's the odd circumstance where individuals, sworn members on probation, are not able to successfully complete the program. As you know, there's recommendations made to not take them off of probation and at times to terminate. And those recommendations end up coming to the police commission here for confirmation. So I know there's been lots of questions about that. And so this is an opportunity to go through. There's a good report in the materials, but this is an opportunity for Kim and Rory to go through what that program or process is and how it goes and how decisions are made and answer any questions you may have. Kim, over to you.
Thanks, boss. So just the folks who are present, who participate in the program, and they didn't all come just for this, because we've got a few BPOD items on today, are ED Rory Thompson to my left, Inspector Jerry Murtaugh, and Director Umair Pervez, who are sitting at the end there. And then I believe Sergeant Mel Wheatley is joining us by phone as well. So I'm just going to make a couple of quick opening comments, and then we'll turn it over to you for questions. This report was prepared in response to a request from CPC to provide more information on the sworn suitability processes. This process was developed to assess concerns of performance, character, or permanent medical restrictions from patrol during the probationary period, which is the first 18 months after hire date. The process ensures that when a probationary constable becomes permanent, they have demonstrated the competencies, values, and ethical standards necessary to carry out their duties as a police officer serving our community. Throughout the recruit and police training officer phases, our Chief Crowfoot Learning Center staff, under the leadership of Inspector Murtaugh, is focused on providing regular feedback, support, and training to address areas in which our probationary constables are struggling. We welcome any questions that you might have about the associated briefing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CPO Armstrong. Questions or comments? Commissioner Hope and then Commissioner Mallon.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I appreciate that to CPO Armstrong and Director and Inspector. My only one question is going to be just around the role of the, I believe it's the recruit advocate position that forms, I think, the phase one of this kind of review process, and to the degree to which the advocacy sort of works. Are they actively speaking on behalf of the probationary constable, or are they just sort of serve to maybe offset the presence of groupthink that can happen in institutions of this nature? So that was my only question. It was just how that works in being able to assess the suitability of a candidate and whether or not they progress to the next stages.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sergeant Wheatley, are you on the line?
Yes, CPO, I'm here.
Fantastic. Can you kindly, as she is the probation advocate, or they are the probation advocate, I'll turn it over to them to respond to your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Commissioner, for your question. My role is to observe, to listen, to be part of the meetings between the CCLC and the HR Business Partnership or HR Services, to ask questions. I am also a resource for the recruit or probationary officer themselves if they have questions about the process. I also, if we do decide to move toward a suitability hearing for a probationary officer, I remain in contact with that person. If it is a performance related concern. So I hope to support the service that way.
I appreciate that answer. So just for the clarity of the advocate, how does that actually work? Are you speaking up to defend them, or to highlight maybe strengths that you feel maybe have overlooked by other members of that committee?
It's an excellent question. My position profile is named probation advocate, but I don't have a specific defense role per se. It's more about having the experience with the number of years I've worked in this role. And I do watch for fairness and bring points up about previous practice or previous cases that others who are newer to the area might not be aware of.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Just a comment that I think it's a really very good and thorough process. And I think the outcomes, 3 to 4% of people maybe get involved in that kind of thing. It'd be an interesting thing to watch over time. Even if we just look at the 2 years that you gave us, in 23, all 5 people that were identified ended up leaving, and only 50% ended up leaving in 24, which perhaps means that the process was working better or whatever. But I think well done. I think it's a very fair and thorough process.
Thanks so much, Commissioner. A lot of folks were involved in building this process, and it took over a year to do it. So I appreciate your recognition of the efforts that went into fairness and natural justice. 2 quick comments. It's been pointed out to me, and I think you may or may not be aware, all of these probationary constables are subject to the jurisdiction of the Calgary Police Association. So they do have representation of the Calgary Police Association through any of these proceedings. I just wanted to highlight that. And secondly, I'm happy to report that because of the extensive efforts that are undertaken at the earliest possible point where a concern is identified with a recruit, we have seen a decline in the number of folks being brought to suitability, even in the 18 months that I've been present at Calgary Police. So and that is because I call it early intervention, but early efforts are made to, whether it's tutorial, extra driving, extra shooting, whatever it is that the issue presents as, we're trying to address it at the earliest possible opportunity.
Commissioner Ogle and then Commissioner Wyness.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, CPO. And I'm in the weeds a bit. Further to Commissioner Mellon's comment, the math tells me that alternative action was required with people who exhibited poor character. Sorry to be so blunt, but has to be the case. Could you explore a little bit more what alternative action is? Like what would the supervisor do to bring this person back on path?
So in cases where we have action, they have gone forward for suitability review, and the chief has directed that they are not going to be terminated, and instead has asked that certain other actions be taken to either return them to class, give them additional supports. So it's not necessarily character related. So I'm sorry.
Math says it has to be. If you look at the numbers, there's 8 total. Some of them it has to be under character that are still under their alternative action. Or am I missing something?
Thanks, Chief.
I was just going to say, Kim, I might be able to build on this one. I think that number, and this may resonate with you, may be the number you're looking at, Commissioner Ogle, might be artificially high. We had the one situation there where there was 5 recruits there was an allegation around cheating on a test there.
Right.
So I think that was characterized as character.
Okay.
So I think that number is artificially inflated. What I saw there when I did the hearings was I think there was 1 recruit that was let go and there was 4 that were kept. And there were issues around what information they were provided around scenarios and how much information they could share and when they could share it. And also the policy needed to be upgraded there. So those might be the alternative actions. So even though they were, I guess what I would say is this, even though it was characterized as character, which I think is strictly true when you look at the allegations, don't forget, because one of the things I looked at is we put them through a very rigorous hiring process. So these were individuals who came to the service with good character, but there were isolated behavior that was classified as character. So I think that's what you're looking at there.
Yeah,
And that's
you're exactly right. I and don't get me wrong, this is a really good number, 3% out of 240 people. But I guess maybe sometimes person was guilty by association because of that situation. And I further to Commissioner Mallon's point, be nice to continue this. I don't suppose we can go back further than we don't have the work done prior to these periods.
I certainly don't know.
Because it's new, you set up processes and policies,
But
but
we
I
will
think it's
continue to
something we
track.
should continue to follow. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And apologies for the lack of clarity in
No,
responding to your
it's,
question.
I can make things as complicated as anybody. It's part of my job.
Commissioner Wyness and then Commissioner Nyson Jordan.
Thanks. I kind of feel like in this document, there's like a process, but then there's also case by case. And so how are we making sure that our case by case is actually a process and decisions are repeatable for people to understand that if they're in a similar situation, the decision will be the same and not changed based on a snapshot in time or political pressure or public scrutiny? Like, how do we make sure that anyone going through this the trigger is the same for everyone and the decision is same for continuity?
Inspector and Director, I will have you answer that question.
Thanks for the question. The challenge is consistency. I agree. We have tightened up our processes. So we have a performance management model, which we're using. So especially within the PTO program. So if they fail twice, they get a first LOE, then they get a letter of expectation the second time with a suitability clause. The same within the recruit program. We have lots of developmental and evaluative elements within the program. And that's the challenge. We have a 27-week program where everyone faces different challenges. It could be firearms, could be skills, could be academics, could be other pieces that are going on. So that's where we do have to make an assessment based on what we're seeing, but it's also that ensuring that the documentation is accurate, but it's also on observed behavior, not opinion. So it's evaluated against what are we seeing and what's the standard.
Have we ever done an audit with the notes that we've noticed in recruits and gone back and looked at that employee 5 years later to see how they performed? And has that ever been done, or should we start doing that just to see consistency?
We haven't, and that's one of the pieces. We've just recently hired an analyst in the CCLC. So what we would like to do is connect the person from when they're recruited to when they graduate. So we see from cradle to grave and even to when they finish within the police service, that what are we seeing? So are there things we're seeing in the recruit pipeline? Are we seeing it in the recruit program? And are we seeing it then as we move forward into in-service?
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
She stole my question.
I do have one question. Around the numbers that you're seeing, around that 5% or 4% of 239 people, what are the numbers like across the country and where do we sort of fit into this?
I think the only comparators that we could look at are in Alberta because it's a provincially legislated process. And I do not know where Edmonton is at in terms of suitability. Does anyone present have that information? I don't know. We can certainly find out.
You know what? I don't want you to go to too much work. I was just kind of curious to see where we landed amongst our counterparts, and because that also shows a little bit of how strong work that we're doing, maybe compared to, I was just curious.
I just was reminded by my executive director, I don't know how I forgot this, that the Edmonton police recruits are not sworn in at the start. So they have a completely different process. So it wouldn't actually be a comparator. So it
Okay.
would be really difficult to apples compare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I do, if it's helpful, I do know anecdotally that their numbers are also very low, at least in terms of cases that might reach to the level of the police commission there. So it's not, I don't have the number for you, but it's not a high number.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Thank you so much for bringing that forward. The next presentation is actually a thank you again, Chief People Officer Armstrong. It's from the Bureau of People and Organizational Development.
Super excited to have the team here with me today. And so even though it takes a couple more minutes, we've decided we're going to have each of the leaders on the team do one slide just so you can meet them. So I'm going to make a 2-sentence introduction, and then I'm going to turn it over to our fantastic leadership team in the Bureau of People and Organizational Development. So our Bureau provides a regular update to the People, Personnel, and Culture Subcommittee on the progress of key initiatives over the course of the year. The report that we are presenting today is a summary of that work and responses to specific previous CPC commissions around, CPC questions around various aspects of our work. We focused on advancing technology and improving process and policy. For example, revising both the Code of Conduct and the Respectful Workplace Policy, building our commitments to equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and then member development and engagement. So I'm going to turn it over to Executive Director Tiffany Fastnage. We have a fabulous and short presentation, PowerPoint presentation available here. And Executive Director Fastnage will kick us off.
Thank you very much, CPO. Good afternoon, commissioners. So there continues to be a focus on an investment in the service in providing wellness services that are designed specifically for the challenges that members face in a 24/7 policing environment. So trauma-informed educational awareness opportunities that we delivered within the service have risen from 2023 by 50%. In 2023, we offered 102 of those sessions. In 2024, we offered 153 sessions, which is roughly about 3 a week of group sessions on this type of topic. And this is higher than our 5-year average, which was 73 sessions. So with the increases in these presentations, we've also trained up facilitators in-house on a number of interventions, so we can offer more of those type of group interventions in-house. The type of interventions that we've have trained facilitators in are things like the Working Mind for First Responders, Breaking the Silence, which is our suicide intervention workshop, psychological first aid, and trauma-informed leadership. We are also focused on reaching all of our members spread out across the city. Annually, we do what's called a Wellness Expo. Usually it was held at West Winds. And we heard loud and clear from our members that not all members can get to West Winds. So we took that Wellness Expo and we took it on the road, and we went to all the districts and specialty units with mental health professionals to meet them in their workplace. This was highly successful, and we received a lot of really positive feedback for the members that we were reaching out and touching them where they work. And lastly, we implemented a more structured approach around, a structured approach with our portal for clinical providers in the community. So we have internal therapists within CPS, within our psychological therapy section, but we have more demand than what we can do internally. So we have roughly about 200 providers in the community that we work with. So we've created an electronic portal where we can monitor, and professionals can upload their credentials and their areas of expertise. So this is a more automated service, and we can keep track of all the providers that we have and ensuring they're up to date on other things. And I'll pass it over to my colleague.
I think Melissa Morrow is next.
Thank you. Thank you, CPO. Good afternoon, Commission. This is on here. In 2024, we focused on ensuring that our processes, policies, and technology are advancing and aligned with HR best practices and legislation. The first is the completion of foundational policy improvements, such as the reestablishment of the Code of Conduct and policy and improvements to the respectful workplace policies. These policies provide clarity for our members and ensure we are consistently applying HR practices with members. It also ensures we are compliant with all our legislative responsibilities as an employer. We are continually evolving and improving our sworn promotion process, which is a key HR process impacting members and our talent pipeline. From a technology perspective, we are currently on a journey of improving our overall technology environment across the HR processes, such as the performance assessment and training and development. The service has been challenged by aging systems that are not integrated. Therefore, our new LMS system, our learning management system, and our performance assessment tools are now integrated into our central HR information system that we share with the city. Thank you.
Awesome blossom. And next, I believe we have, Edie Thompson.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commission. From a training and capabilities perspective, we continue to roll out many of the initiatives and tools that we thankfully got the support from you with regards to the 4-year budget. In 2023, the main focus was increasing our C8 rifle program, as well as uplifting and rolling out our new taser, enhanced taser T7. In 2024, we've continued that momentum. First, we rolled out the tire deflation device, which is having a direct impact on officer and public safety on our roads. At the end of 2024, we also started rolling out our new Cougar launcher, which is our extended range impact weapon. And for those that are not aware, it's a less lethal capability. And this new use of force tool is absolutely instrumental to us using minimum force required in order to address the risk. We have also increased our extended range impact weapon pool and capability on the front line, as well as our rifle program as well. And we've done this by simply changing our approach. So traditionally, we would do an individual issue of the capability, the weapon system, which ultimately meant that we had about 250 officers across the service trained on that weapon. By simply changing the way to a more of a general issue pool, where all members are trained on the weapon system and they ultimately go and sign out that weapon prior to going on shift, we have now increased capability on the front line. So we have more members trained, we have more weapon systems out there to address the needs of Calgary at any time. And the best bit about it, we've done it without even buying any more equipment. We just changed how we do that. And we're going to continue to roll that out as well. On the tactics side, we introduced new driver training, which is going to continue into 2025, and we're going to formalize it. It also includes a requalification that didn't exist before. We're also training right now, and this will continue into Q2 of 2025, is Rescue Task Force. So this is an interoperability tactic that we ultimately utilize with CFD as well as EMS. And ultimately, it's preparing our members and their members to deal with a mass casualty event should that unfortunate situation ever be required in Calgary. All of our training is rooted in our de-escalation use of force policy, and that policy is continually being reviewed, and that's been reviewed with fatality inquiries, with things that we learn each and every day. And on that respective committee, we have members from ARAC, we have legal representation, we have policy writers, just to name a few. And in 2024, that committee created the new use of force framework, which teaches and helps our members, not telling them how to think, not what to think, but how to think, with de-escalation really being at the core. And every decision point along that framework, de-escalation is absolutely the focus. In addition, subject aftercare was added, which wasn't there before. So as soon as that threat or ultimately risk is minimized, it then goes into aftercare for the subject as well. I'm also happy to report that framework was approved and is now at the provincial level as well, which will ensure that provincial consistency, which is a huge good news story for us, and obviously for CPS to lead that initiative, as we're super proud of. Lastly, CPS continues to remain super focused on member morale and engagement. We can have the best tools, we can have the best policy, but ultimately our biggest and most important asset is our people. So in 22, many of you will recall that we started the Pathways to Engagement initiative. That was more at the organizational level. Every year we do the, thanks to you, get a gauge and temperature check on how we're getting on there with the employee engagement survey. This year in 2024, we actually went to that more grassroots. What do the people need at that unit level to ultimately address more of the needs there? And that's going to continue to that focus, with obviously a lot of the focus right now being on making sure they're engaged and communicated with all the changes and upheaval with the recent budget situation we find ourselves in. Thanks very much, Commission. Look forward to questions.
Thanks, E.D. Thompson. And last but never least, Director Wura Odiase.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thanks for having us today. We're really pleased to inform you that we are advancing the goal of the CPS to be reflective of the community we serve. And with this vision in mind, we are continuing our efforts to expand our recruiting outreach to be more inclusive and go beyond traditional methods. Our journey includes leveraging media sources in languages, hosting boot camps, specifically to engage with potential female applicants, and launching our Inspiring Call to Lead podcast. This podcast features officers from diverse backgrounds and experiences sharing their personal stories and insights into the life of a police officer. Through these initiatives, we aim to broaden our reach and connect more deeply with our community. In our unwavering commitment to inclusion and belonging, we proudly hosted our inaugural Inclusion Summit in 2024, and we were honored and graced by the leadership of the Commission. This summit created a dynamic space for dialogue and engagement, bringing together 763 participants across the service over the course of the event. The impact was profound and the feedback overwhelmingly positive, marking a significant step forward in our mandate to foster a safe, healthy, inclusive, and respectful workplace for all CPS members. Thank you very much, and we'll take questions.
Thank you very much, CPO Armstrong, to you and your team. It's fantastic that you brought all of them. It's good for us to have FaceTime with them as well. So thank you. Questions from my colleagues. Commissioner Nyson-Jordan and then Commissioner Cornett.
Thanks. One's a comment and one's a question. So the comment is, I would dearly love to see the code of conduct and the respectful workplace policy. So if we can get that on our Dilla Trust, that would be fantastic. Thank you. And the question I have relates to, I guess it's the recruitment of the racialized and marginalized populations and gender. We've been working at this for a long time and it went down this year. So is there any specific thought related to why that's not trending in the right direction, given the incredible amount of work you guys are doing?
Just for clarity, when you say trend in the wrong direction, what are you specifically referring to?
The percentage of racialized and gender specific individuals.
Okay.
They're much lower this year than they were last year.
Okay, perfect. So our goal or target, whatever we want to define it as, is generally about that 40%, and that comes from ultimately Calgary being 40% racialized, marginalized. So that ultimately our goal, and we have been absolutely up there in the past. One of the unintended consequences of ultimately recruiting people from that community is the assessment of communication. And so as part of our and this was feedback from our training aspect, and it came down to officer safety, that we saw huge areas of opportunity to tighten up our processes, and it's a soul gen competency that should be measured during the applicant process, which is, can they communicate, can they understand? Mainly because ultimately, if that communication is not understood, it's going to escalate the situation as opposed to de-escalate. So maybe one of the points that you're seeing there is on the We tightened up our processes. As part of the BDI interview now, it is actually a criteria that we assess, which is unfortunately having an impact there. But obviously, we always come down to officer safety with regards to the competencies. That being said, we absolutely have programs in place to assist members who are identified as an area of opportunity being communication, where we actually assist them financially with, depending how far they are in the process, if we're going to get a tutor, as an example. So this is one of the initiatives. The other initiatives specifically that we're doing is going out and ultimately trying to engage that community or the communities as much as we can. The numbers are, again, a dip, but we're still absolutely where we want to be. And can we always do better? 100%. So a lot of our focus is on the ED&I community. We had the ED&I marketing campaign that was launched last year, which was a huge success. Lots of feedback, positive across the country as well as Calgary on that. So we're going to continue to focus on that. We can absolutely control the attraction of people to apply. And then where obviously we lose a bit of the control because the standards are owned by the province is the actual selection process itself. We have been lobbying with the government for about 2.5, 3 years to get those standards reviewed because they haven't been reviewed in a while. And actually at the end of last year, we got some success. They made a commitment to review the standards with today's lens, which will absolutely help because there is some barriers in there that ultimately we have made progress with, but we don't control what those necessarily are.
Commissioner Cornett.
Hi, some great training and things, and I'm curious if you can comment on how you're evaluating the effectiveness of the new trauma-informed training that you're doing overall.
Sorry, could
So
you repeat the
with
question?
with all of the training that you're doing, and I understand you've shifted a little bit in terms of how do you evaluate its effectiveness and assuming that it's going to improve what you did before?
So what we did, we don't, right now, we don't compare it to what we did before. We're measuring if it's effective now. And so depending on which program it is, so for example, the Working Mind for First Responders, which comes from the Mental Health Commission of Canada, they have lots of data behind it, but we also do, after every session we do evaluations on the session from the participants, and then we take that feedback, both the quantitative and the qualitative feedback, and make tweaks to it. In terms of knowing that those programs are effective for what they claim to do. The programs that we've taken Train the Trainer for, so TEND and the Working Mind for First Responders, we do rely on the data that comes from those presenters, that it's working on that, and then our assessments from the people that participate in it.
And I know it's a very hard thing to do, but sometimes you can do so much training that you're doing the training, the activity, and you're not actually seeing if in a year or two. So maybe there's questions in the engagement survey or others that you target to look at now for future to see if there's been impact. The wellness forums as well might be another place where evaluation is important. So thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I would also say that we do get some qualitative information from people after they say, for example, the wellness interventions that we did. Following that, just recently, we had a critical incident, and at that critical incident, the officers involved had actually said that because you came to our district and interacted with us at that point, I'm very comfortable in telling you where I'm at in terms of after this event. So that was it's not really anecdotal because they told us directly, but it was really powerful feedback to know that we were on the right track.
Thanks very much.
One other quick point I'd make in relation to that, Commissioner, is when we went on the Wellness Roadshow, which was going out to all the districts and having our team interact with folks, that led to a huge increase in voluntary health checks. So in the first couple months of 2025, we've had a very significant increase in the amount of members who are coming voluntarily for psychological health checks. So, and that is, I think, because they met the team, and it changes things when you've seen a person.
So I would just comment that it's important to keep track of that information somehow. So I assume you are, but that's it. Thanks. Thanks, Chair.
Commissioner Hope.
Thank you, Chair. And just keeping in line with trauma care, you're not going to get off that easy. It's something you said, and it ties back into the presentations before about strategic partnerships. I believe you talked about using psychologists outside of the CPS range. With that in mind, and with obviously the complexities of the care that's needed and the various different situations that may arise, how do you consider consistency and ensuring that maybe the care is in keeping with what's expected and can be sort of level set across all members without hopefully one or two being sort of dropped through the cracks?
Excellent question. Thank you for that. Part of that is being our portal helps us a little bit with that, but the other way, when we refer someone out to a provider in the community, there's certain criteria that we expect them to have. So to have cultural competence in terms of working within the policing environment, so that, and after we refer people to a provider that we have on our list that's approved and has the credentials, we get a evaluation from the provider and an evaluation from the member on how that service worked. So if the member has an experience that is negative, then we will follow up with that. And it has resulted in people being removed from our approval list. So that's how we monitor that. The other place that we do is we have, so for people who might be in a more extended therapy treatment, we do case conferences with psychiatrists that we have on retainer. So if somebody's seeing someone for a super long time, we would do periodic check-ins at a case conference to say, is it working? Is it not working? The other thing is internally, we use outcome measures. So if the outcome measures are not showing improvement, then we, again, what's not working? And we're now going forward and asking our providers to also use outcome measures to show that not just the client saying it feels good, but we have some measure to say that we're making progress.
Commissioner Wong.
Thank you. I believe it was last October, we had a conversation question with regards to EDI and culture, the workplace and culture, and CPO. In the report here on page, I believe 7 of 9, makes reference to CPS assessing organizational diversity, equity, inclusion, and maturity through partnering with Diversio. Can you just give us an update as to what came out of that?
Director Odiase, do you want to take that, please?
We are actually in the process of finalizing the findings, and thereafter we will present to ELT a couple of recommendations that we got from the consultants, and then we'll go back and do some engagement within the service to identify the things that we're able to advance in 2025, 2026, and hopefully into 2027. So we're wrapping that up at the moment.
So any indication, albeit preliminary and not finalized, are we advancing EDI within the organization?
Yes, I would speak from, I wouldn't speak specifically to the result, but in terms of some of the deliverables and the actions, we're actually making significant progress within the service.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
This might be a question for, I know Deputy Tofik and I have had this. I just want to clarify, to address training resource challenges, the recruit class plan for December 24 was rescheduled to January 25. As a result, sworn hiring was down. Are we going to be back on path in 25, 26? Or are we going to, and maybe you could explain what I think it's a budgetary issue. Is that not correct, Chad?
Thanks for the question, Commissioner, and I'm sure Executive Director Thompson can fill any gaps that I might have, but that decision was actually made pre-budget there, but it was just a delay. All the other recruit classes are on track, so they are booked for the rest of the year.
Any other questions? Comments? So once again, thank you for that report. I just want to specifically mention, I know that this commission over the past few years has really, really appreciated the work being done in the recruiting and increasing the numbers so that they reflect the community. So appreciate the fact that the 40% is your goal, but making sure that you have the right applicants to get there. So thank you for that concentration. So, and again, thank you for all the work that you're doing. The next item on our agenda are 2 reports on crime trends. The first report covers what the investigative areas of the service are working to address, and the second report covers the trends frontline officers are addressing.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I note the time, so I'll just make a couple of quick highlights. You would have seen in the report that we attended a couple of events over this past month. Also, you've heard me speak about frauds before and the scams that are out there. Unfortunately, people continue to be victimized by these individuals. We put out several media requests over the past month and a half, and we work with many of our partners to ensure that our investigative abilities are enhanced, as well as the communication and preventative measures are shared with the public. Just speaking about the prolific offender engagement team, you would have seen that in the report. Just a couple of quick highlights. You would have heard here as well in the past that we have many teams that conduct offender management. Our most serious and high-risk individuals, those who pose the highest risk to public safety and so forth. So there's a very robust process as to how these individuals are selected and how we monitor, strategize, engage, intervene. You would have also seen a story in the report there where we were actually able to assist in the rehabilitation with an individual back into society, where he's actually moved away from his criminal activities in the past. We're currently monitoring about 1,300 active high-profile targets throughout the service. Just quickly on our violent crime suppression team, another amazing team who is very high profile, high visibility. Their basic primary objective is to detect and remove individuals associated with organized crime who pose a significant risk. So many of you might have seen that they're in our restaurants, they're in pubs, they're in cafes, they're in gyms. And given that the patios will be more and more here coming in the next, hopefully, couple of weeks, you will see more and more of them. They play a critical role in intelligence gathering and in suppression, and work with many, many other teams throughout the service to, again, target and monitor the individuals who are committing criminal activities in our city. They are on track to conduct about 5,000 walkthroughs and almost 200 ejections by the end of this year. And as I said, assist many other teams with these individuals. Just a couple of stats that were not mentioned on the public safety dashboard. As of this morning, we have 9 shootings compared to 15 at this point last year, and 4 homicides compared to 5 at this time last year. Deputy Gill, I'll turn it to you, and then we can take questions.
Thanks, Katie. Good afternoon, everybody. You'll see the monthly crime report for the Bureau of Community Policing is in front of you. There's comments there that provide the statistics around the CERT deployment on Project Certainty, as we're calling it, which is in the downtown core around Stephen Avenue. You'll also see the results of the Sheriff's STEP program that is in collaboration with the CPS Traffic Services team, some district investigative updates, and some other related material. The chair already spoke to a few statistics, but I'll just pass them on in terms of the work that our CERT teams have done under Project Certainty. So 230 criminal charges have been laid, over 1,400 arrest warrants have been executed, and more than 1,000 summonses, bylaw summonses have been issued. Additionally, 29 charges have been laid under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, which is a combination of both possession of a controlled substance and also trafficking of a controlled substance. In terms of the bylaw offenses, most have been referred to the Calgary Community Court. We are seeing exceptional success of the Calgary Community Court. So much so that recently the city has made the decision to go from a monthly sitting of the community court to a weekly sitting. So they will sit every Tuesdays. There is upwards of 300 to 400 people that have been referred to the community court through the issuance of summonses, bylaw summonses. Although we are seeing great success and the collaboration that we're doing with our city partners in transit and bylaw in and around public safety, we still continue to have incidents of crime and disorder that are impacting Calgarians. You'll be familiar, I imagine, with the viral video that was circulating on social media over the last couple of days of a individual being victimized at a Calgary transit station. And you're also aware through our media release that once the police were notified, our members within 25 minutes were able to locate and arrest the suspect. What was critical for that was the fact that we had witnesses who were able to call police and also direct the members to where the suspect had moved on to, and he was found in the East Village. He was arrested and was charged with robbery or attempted robbery, which includes the act of violence. And he was scheduled for court this morning, and he attended court this morning and was denied bail, so he is remanded in custody. And additionally, transit peace officers have also issued him with a 1-year ban from transit and transit facilities. Just to reiterate, our officers are working super hard every day to deal with those who cause harm and display behaviors that make Calgarians feel unsafe. These individuals display complex needs who have cycled in and out of the judicial system, and despite connections to resources and supports, continue to cause harm. These are what we consider high system users that our officers and our partners are engaging with daily. Although there are no easy solutions to address these complex problems, we are striving to connect these individuals to the appropriate services. The Safer Calgary operation will continue throughout the month of April, while we are simultaneously completing an evaluation of the results of that program. And then we are also, to our best, to Michael's team, using social media to highlight some of the successes and some of the opportunities that we are exploring through Operation Certainty. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Wyness, and then Commissioner Tangay.
Thanks. One comment and question I've seen in the community about the viral assault is, why wasn't he charged with assault? Like, and to the average citizen, it looks like physical violence. You can't really tell that he was trying to steal something, and it was on a platform. So when you read the incident in the press, it doesn't make sense to citizens. So can you explain that to the public, please?
Sure can. Under the criminal code, robbery is a more serious offense than assault. And for it to be deemed a robbery, there has to be a assault or a threat of assault. So it's actually an included offense in robbery.
Thank you so much for your report. It's kind of obvious that there's been a bit of a shift with some of the 26 individuals who were charged with possession, something that we didn't see very often in the past. I'm just curious, kind of from a policy side, and maybe how much of this has to do with the new drug czar, how this continued movement looks to go, and is the plan to continue to increase enforcement in the downtown?
Commissioner, I'll do my best to answer all parts of your question, but you may have to repeat part of it. So first of all, I can't say it's anything linked to the drug czar. I can tell you that the chief had a meeting with the chief federal crown that controls the prosecution of federal offenses such as the CDSA Act, and really spoke about some of the challenges we are facing as a police service in our community without having the ability to lay charges for possession of a narcotic or a controlled substance in our community, and particularly for those high system users or those chronic offenders. That led to a meeting between Superintendent Boyd and the Chief Crown for Calgary who ironically has stated that she is a regular user of transit, so she sees some of these behaviors. And we put some protocols in place between the Crown's office and our office, and we did a bit of an onboarding session for our members. So we have a criteria that the members will prepare, and when they are laying charges for those individuals who fit our criteria, which has led to the 29 charges we've had so far in the last 4 weeks that we've had this operation. And as you know, Section 10 of the CDSA speaks to mitigating circumstances or alternate measures. And so we've actually been, in our discussions with Crown, been able to then satisfy Section 10 and really deal with laying charges for those individuals that are causing harm, where alternate measures or other techniques have not worked in the past. So great success, and it's because of a collaborative conversation and a willing partner in federal prosecutions. As you can appreciate, we're 4 weeks into this operation, so none of those have gone to trial yet. So we will see how that progresses through the courts in due course.
Thank you very much for that. I don't know if I need to make a motion for this, but it would be nice to see the outcomes as we're moving forward with how many actually end up being prosecuted. As we've had these discussions, we had discussions at the policing summit of, you know, a range around 70% not actually of charges from CPS not actually going anywhere and being thrown out at time of prosecution. So it would be very important for us to also see this data as to what that looks like. Do you need a motion for that, or can you bring that forward?
Sorry, Deputy Chief, why don't we make a motion? So I'll get, can you work with Amber on what you want? And then we can just ensure that that's included in the report. Thank you. Commissioner Wong and then Commissioner Mallon.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Chief, you made reference to, again, the viral video. Sorry. Hi. You made reference to the viral video and that, and then the action taken to arrest the perpetrator and deny bail. The question I have more than anything else is a question I get from constituents all the time. Why does that happen? No, and I don't mean why does it happen in that rhetorical sense, but from a policing side equation, one thing is to catch the person, but the other is to have eyes on the ground to prevent the person from doing that. And are we adequately resourced, adequately distributing our resources around so that, you know, there are more officers, whether it be patrolling patrolling the RT stations, the trains, the streets, and everything else. Are we distributing them well enough to prevent these perpetrators even starting it?
Councillor, I'll answer your question and happy to elaborate on it, but I would say that we are doing the best with the resources that we have and in collaboration with our partners in Calgary Transit. So we are, as you know, in the last 4 weeks working in collaboration. There's a morning briefing and an afternoon briefing where we discuss strategies in terms of deploying to hotspots, deploying to problem areas, and also making sure that we're working in partnership. So our transit bylaw officers are working hand in hand with the Calgary Police Service. So with the resources that we currently have, we are deploying to our maximum capabilities.
If I may tack on to that, thanks, Councillor Wong. It's one of those questions that's really hard. Like, we deploy based on the data to the hotspots, to the places where we're having issues. But I think, you know, that was a very, very unfortunate situation. And I'm sure you saw the video. It did not look like, when I watched it, that it was very well thought out. It seemed to be a very spontaneous thing. And so short of certainly in the downtown core, having somebody standing on every corner, which we're not able to do, I don't know that we'll ever prevent everything from happening. I mean, that's obviously very high profile and very impactful on the community. So, you know, deplorable behavior. But when you watch it, it's, you know, a person, I don't know what the background is, whether there was, you know, drugs or mental health or what was going on there, but it just did not seem to be super well thought out. It wasn't even carried through at the end of the day. And again, thankfully, individuals who were in that space helped and called right away and helped police to apprehend the individual right away. But very unfortunate situation, but very hard to prevent everything as much as we might use our data. And this happens, sadly, right in the middle of Operation Certainty, where we have more officers, peace officers and police officers in uniforms downtown. way more than we normally have. So super unfortunate for sure.
Yeah, I think where I'm driving to is we have, as you say, both members of the service as well as members of city administration, whether it be LRT, bylaw, whatever officers. The question is, I have is each of the different services that are out there, are they adequately trained, to be able to respond? So in other words, our LRT has security officers. Are security officers capable of doing what CPS does? Peace officers, bylaw officers, so if they're not all at the same level of training, then do we really have to have adequate coverage? That's what I'm trying to get at. Thank you.
Thanks. Others may want to chime in on this, but I can tell you, so the police officers are certainly capable of actually conducting the criminal investigation and intervening in those things from start to finish. As you know, with the support from Council for the Transit Safety Strategy, there's been a large investment and a number of transit peace officers hired. That group is relatively new. And so I think they're finding their way. I think they're doing very, very well, but I think there's a lot of people that are quite new in the role. So they're learning their piece as well. I think what we're hearing right now is that there's a lot of, I guess, disrespectful behavior toward authority. And I think that can be said about institutions generally right now, people's orientation toward institutions. And so what we're hearing from our partners in bylaw and transit is that they're enjoying working with the police service members because they're actually getting more respect than they generally get on their own, working in tandem like that. I think, for the purposes of this operation, for people in the downtown core and other public spaces along the transit network, seeing more uniforms and seeing more people in authority in those spaces, I think is very positive. But once again, it's very difficult. There's multiple aspects to the operation. There are too. I want to acknowledge, Recovery Alberta employees and stuff like that are actually on the compassionate side that are trying to connect people to resources as well. That's all part of it as well. And then the CROs are there actually connecting with business owners just to reassure them, just to make sure they understand that we're in the area and make sure that we're super interested in them reporting crimes and concerns when they happen. And we've talked about that before. So, but again, I just was a little bit heartbroken the fact that this happened at all to the individual that it happened to. I know it had an impact on the broader community as well. And then it happens right in the middle of a time when we have dedicated resources down there. So very, very unfortunate.
Sorry, before I go to Commissioner Mallon, I just sort of following up on that piece. Deputy Chief Gill and Chief, you said, this was a hot spot and it was earlier in the day, like it wasn't late at night. And so I'm just curious though, well, I am very proud that the officers caught this gentleman within 25 minutes. Where were people? Like, where were officers or where were transit folks? Like, was there nobody in that area that could have responded quicker or would have seen this? Kind of going back to this, I understand you can't have resources there all the time, but it's a pretty big hotspot right now.
Councillor or Chair, we have many hotspots in between East Village, the LRT stations, Marlborough, Westbrook, you name it. It's right across, right down into the Beltline and other areas. So at that particular time, nobody was at that particular station, but they were in and around the vicinity because we had that operation going on actively.
And then just another question, just sort of, I've received some questions and there's been things online as well. Why is this not a hate crime?
We have referred it to Deputy Daly's team and they're actively reviewing that right now. The initial evidence that we have on scene did not have our investigators believe that it was hate motivated, but we've asked for a review by the hate crimes coordinator.
Great, thanks. We'll wait for that. I get update when that comes then. Thank you.
I've seen commentary online as well where the community and maybe the individual felt like it was a hate crime. So the initial investigation will be for the substantive criminal offense. In this case, because of the attempt to take the phone, it was a robbery, which is a more serious charge. Some people have asked why the person wasn't charged with assault. The assault is an included offense in the more serious charge of robbery, and in this case, attempted. But I think it goes to the hate crimes coordinator after for a deeper look And the deeper look might include things like searching online presence if the person has one, looking for previous interactions with members of a community or whatever that might actually indicate a hate motivation. Really what it comes down to is they're looking for and consulting with the Crown around evidence that it was hate motivated. And if that's the case, there will be a hate motivation attached at some point to the substantive criminal offense. So that could come, but sometimes that takes some additional time. Sometimes when we say that doesn't appear to be hate motivated, it doesn't mean that it wasn't, to be super clear. What it means is there isn't evidence to be able to take that forward. So it's not a conclusive, it was or it wasn't, it's just whether or not there was evidence present that would actually enable us to take it forward. And there's always consultations with the Crown as well around that before that motivator is added.
Thank you, Chief. I think it was important for the public to hear that as well. So thank you. Commissioner Mallon.
Thank you, Chair. This is a bit of a less volatile subject, but I was wondering, I noticed that officers have referred 980 people to the Navigation Center. And I'm wondering if they're discrete people or if the Navigation Center is another place that people go sometimes. Like, are they 980 different people or do people go back and forth?
No, sometimes they're the same individual, just on different days or different weeks.
So the purpose then would be what? Because the Navigation Center is supposed to get them ID and do various things. So they go back, week after week for what then?
Well, sometimes when they're at the Navigation Center, they are connected with services, but those services may not be available that day. So they have to come back a different day and sometimes they don't come back. Then our officers interact with them again and there's another opportunity to bring them back to the Navigation Center.
Okay. All right. So I'm just trying to understand like the impact on the downtown of the Navigation Center and if it really is taking some people out of that system, I guess, because they get their needs met. But do we have any idea of the population in the downtown? I know that the city or the Homeless Foundation used to do an unhoused survey, but this is more than just unhoused people, right? The people downtown, they may be coming from other places in the city and be downtown during the day. So do we have any kind of metric on how many folks are part of the concern downtown?
I can tell you in terms of metrics, how many people that the Calgary Police Service deal with. In terms of how many people that are out there that we have no interactions with, I wouldn't know that number. We wouldn't know that number. So we. Okay.
Okay.
So the Intrepid, I see for sheet here has got it. So the point in time survey actually came out. It's been in the news just in the last couple of days. So we're just checking that. But the NAV Center actually has up-to-date online statistics. So as of today, there were 63 visitors today. So that some of those would have been taken in by CPS. Others may have come in on their own. In the last 30 days, there was 981, and those are unique individuals, not repeats, that have come to the Navigation Center. Again, to Deputy Gill's point, we would have visibility into the ones we've taken, and there may be some repeats, but these are the numbers. And then all-time visitors have been 3,981 up to date. And I'm going a little bit from memory because I read this, but the point in time count for the homeless study was the numbers were up. I believe they were just north of 3,000. 3,200 and something, which is actually an increase of several hundred. I know the Homeless Foundation had talked about the fact that, like, if you were looking at it as a rate because of the growth in population, we're about stable, or maybe we've gone down a little bit, but the reality of it is the numbers have gone up. So that's it just depends how you look at it. I would say that it's good that it's not, going up by rate, but there's been a lot of investment in this space. And so I think it's not necessarily a good news story in terms of, I think what your question goes to is it people accessing services, are they ultimately getting off of
the routine?
Yes, off of the routine.
Yeah.
And so the answer to that appears to be, at the very least, they're not becoming housed. So I think a lot of the spaces that the government is building around treatment that are coming online will be helpful. I think all of the efforts to try to create affordable and supportive housing will be helpful. Perhaps any efforts and traction around things like compassionate intervention may be helpful. But at this point, it would appear that we're treading water a little bit.
Like maintenance kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ogle.
Further to the NAV Center, and it's just a question, is it still only Monday to Friday? So it needs more, like everything else, needs more resources for more effect. Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. So thank you both, Deputy Chiefs, for those reports. And before we approve the reports, I think we have two motions that we need to bring forward quickly. So Amber, whichever one you have ready to go first, please. So the first one is it's moved and seconded to direct the service to provide in the next Bureau of Community Policing's monthly crime update, the amount of individuals who are charged with possession of an illicit substance via the Saver Calgary operation, and to direct CPS to provide further outcome data of the prosecution versus thrown out or stayed. I think that was yours, Commissioner Tenge. Okay, so you move. And can I get someone to second, please? Commissioner Mallon, any discussion and service as well? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess that was my question.
Oh,
I think it gets there. I think some of what we're expecting to see as a result of this certainty operation is diversion. So when we talk about thrown out or stayed, we may want to just include language around diversion, which would be valuable potentially. Because thrown out or stayed is very similar, but diverted in some way.
Can we shift it to prosecuted versus diverted versus thrown out or stayed? Right, like I'm good. I think diverted is probably the best outcome of all of it. Thrown out or stayed is the worst outcome of all of it. So at least if they're prosecuted, they're probably connected to services. If they're diverted, they're connected to services. If it's stayed, they get nothing.
Friendly amendment, I'd change the word amount to number.
any other comments regarding the motion? Okay, can I get all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Great, thank you. And just one more motion. We're just going back to the strategic partnership section. There was one more around collecting some information. So once Amber has it up on the screen. Yeah, no worries. Great, thanks, Amber. So the second motion is move and seconded to direct the service to include in future reporting on strategic partnerships, quantitative numbers or estimates of people diverted from courts or future criminal activity, including youth diversion, Indigenous court and drug courts. If possible, a related estimate of the number of officers involved in providing time to the efforts. Commissioner Cornett, is that suitable?
Yes, I was just trying to capture the various conversations between Cherie and, Commissioner Nice and Jordan and others about all of the good work that's being done, if we can take it. And I know that you said that you would definitely be doing that as you refine your reporting. But I thought it would be helpful just to try and capture what it was we were looking for.
Yeah, the first 3/4 of it is definitely achievable. The last portion, we will make an attempt.
I know,
If-
and
if
that's
that
why,
is-
I put, if possible.
Yeah.
A related estimate of the
Yes.
number of, so, and time or whatever. So I totally understand that's tough.
I
but-
fully understand what you're trying,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
being asked. And
Yeah.
so I just put the caveat on the last
Yeah.
part of it. We'll make our best attempt to achieve that.
Perfect. Thanks.
So moved by Commissioner Cornett, seconded by Commissioner Mallon. I just, sorry, going back to that last piece, Deputy Chief Daly, I understand that, you'll make, and it's hard to get some of those numbers. I just feel as we go into new budget asks and as we go into, moving things of fine revenue out and all that, I think it's very important for the city to know the proactive work that's happening and somehow give it some sort of quantitative number so that we can share it, and then not only with council, but share it openly in the community as well.
I understand. We'll do our best on it. I know what Staff Warren spoke to, and a newly utilized employee within the diversion team is assisting with that. So it's going to help with the last part with respect to reviewing every single case that gets diverted within the service. So yeah.
And are you able, sorry, just not only looking at what Staff Sergeant Warren was talking about, but also looking at things like MAST, Youth Link, even, the other programs that you have, as well as Youth Link out there and the work that they're doing and the kids that they're bringing into the system as well. I think all of it together is very important. So.
Yeah, I think those ones will be the easier ones to quantify. It's going to be the frontline officer participation in the programs that will have more difficulty, and it'll be more estimated time based on CAD calls, logins, logouts, the systems, that type of stuff. But
fair enough. Sorry, one more comment, because every time you say something, it makes me think of something. It's even like in the previous report that we saw around Safer Calgary, right? Those 1,200 check-ins with retail. You're not necessarily actually reporting, like going to look at a crime. You're checking in and talking to the community. So I think even those numbers are important for people to see. So I will leave it. Commissioner Nyson-Jordan.
This is more of a question, and I don't want any extra work done around it. But you mentioned an app with the SROs and them kind of logging some of their time. I wonder if there's any potential for adaptability to some of that with the diversion.
absolutely. And I think again, that data we can capture. I'm actually not sure if we even are right now. We may be. I haven't used the app specifically, but again, it'll be more towards the frontline officer. So we need to look for an opportunity and how we engage that in some sort of tag within the CAD call that we might be able to tag into that we can pull the numbers.
Okay, so if I could see everyone's hands for approving this motion, please. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And now I need to ask someone to please move and second to receive the chief's reports for information. Commissioner Hanson, Commissioner Nyson-Jordan. Any comments? All those in favor? Great. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is an opportunity for commissioners who represent our commission on various external associations and committees to share any information they need. There are no presentations, but do commissioners have any questions for any of our representatives? I will just make one quick comment around the Canadian Association of Police Governance. Their annual conference is happening in Victoria, August 14th to the 16th. So if there are commissioners or others who are interested in attending, the program is quite attractive this year. The program's always attractive, but it's even more attractive this year. So there are no reports, so we don't need to receive any, but moving on, that is the end of the presentations and reports for today. We will now invite public guests who registered to speak to do so. Our public participation process is designed to balance the desire to hear from the public with the need to keep meetings a reasonable length. Those of you who registered to provide a presentation will have 4 minutes to speak, followed by commissioners having an opportunity to ask brief clarifying questions. Those who registered to ask a question will have 2 minutes to speak, followed by a member of the Commission or Calgary Police Service having 2 minutes to respond. Please keep your comments to the topic you provided when you registered. We also cannot discuss a complaint about any specific employee or interaction with the police. If you would like to discuss a complaint against an officer or other employee, please contact our Public Complaint Director or the Calgary Police Service Professional Standards section so it can be properly addressed. I would also like to thank everyone that took the time to send written submissions prior to this meeting. They've been provided to everyone on the commission as part of the meeting materials, and we appreciate you taking the time to write and share your insights. Finally, a reminder to members of the media that we will hear from the public first, then we will hold a media availability for you. Can you please put through the first speaker?
Yeah, we have 3 members of the public wanting to speak today. The first one we're going to put through is Wassam Cooley. I'm just going to promote him to panelist. Wassam, can you speak, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, right, thank you for having me. I'm here to address you about the violent misconduct of Calgary Police at the University of Calgary student protest on May 9th of 2024. I've addressed you all many times by now, so I'm sure you all have the facts memorized, but just in case anyone needs a reminder, on that day there was a non-violent student-led protest involving an encampment at the University of Calgary. Calgary Police showed up basically in militarized gear, armed with batons and civilian munitions, as they're called. That night, protesters had made the decision to pack the encampment and had communicated that clearly to Calgary Police. They were complying with officers' requests and had in fact dismantled the whole camp and were essentially on their way out when all of a sudden police decided, completely unprovoked, to attack them. And by attack, I mean it was quite vicious and violent. Several people were left with serious injuries, many bruised and bloodied, and a couple people with concussions. We still don't know why the police decided to attack us, again, totally unprovoked, at a completely peaceful demonstration as we were complying. And part of the reason we don't know why it happened is because there has been effectively no public investigation. An ACERT investigation was ordered, which allegedly looked into it, but that investigation was dropped in October of last year. ACERT claimed they had no evidence of serious injuries. It was quite a baffling conclusion for us, as I said to the commission at the time, because medical evidence of serious injuries having been suffered on that day had been sent to ACERT directly. And you'll recall I spoke here and at the time accused CPS, the province, and the commission of a deliberate cover-up of what happened. There's now been a new report by the journalist Jeremy Appel. I sent that article to the commission beforehand. I hope you've all had a chance to read it. It cites newly obtained documents from a Freedom of Information request, specifically handwritten notes of Chief Mark Neufeld from the days after the encampment. And those notes reveal that on May 13th, 4 days after the incident, Chief Neufeld received 2 phone calls, first from Safety Minister Mike Ellis, informing him that an ACERT investigation was being ordered. And about half an hour later, a phone call from the Provincial Chief of Staff, Marshall Smith, in which it was said that ACERT would not investigate the issue and that lack of serious injuries would apparently be cited as the reason, though I leave it up to Chief Neufeld to clarify the meaning of his own notes. But basically, it appears that the decision that ACERT would drop the investigation had already been made by May 13th. 4 days after, before any of the evidence of serious injuries had been submitted to ACERT, let alone considered by ACERT, or by anyone else, in fact. So it appears that ACERT dropping the investigation was a predetermined conclusion, which makes a lot of sense given that the evidence completely contradicts their finding. And most troublingly, the fact that they would drop their investigation appears to have been communicated to Chief Neufeld within a few days of the incident. This should be especially troubling for the commission specifically. You'll recall that I and others have addressed the commission repeatedly about this incident. We've been at almost every commission meeting since. The questions we posed were serious questions. You had a student ask why she was assaulted by Calgary Police on campus when she was doing nothing wrong and why she was injured. You heard from one elderly protester who was batoned in the face by police and had an explosive flashbang detonate on her leg, leaving her with multiple bruises. There were questions posed about the lies that the police told to the media after the fact and even to the commission, covering up what really happened. And I see Sean Cornett is in the room. You'll recall you were the chair at the time of most of those meetings. And you'll recall that you blocked basically all of the questions. The reason you blocked them, they wouldn't take the questions. You cited the ongoing ACERT investigation as the reason why those questions couldn't be taken. And now it comes to light that ACERT's conclusion was basically predetermined and that ordering that ACERT investigation was effectively done to protect CPS from accountability. And in fact, it seems to have been what happened because public questions were blocked on the grounds of an ACER investigation. I just want to point out, as serious questions from the public were being posed to Chief Neufeld and the Commission in a public meeting where public questions are supposed to be answered, virtually all of those questions were blocked. And while the Commission chair is blocking those questions because it's supposedly being looked into by ACERT, we now know that at the time, Chief Neufeld had already been told that the investigation was effectively not going to happen. So as these questions are being posed, Chief Neufeld's sitting there, having already been told it's not going to
Mr.
happen.
Cooley.
He says nothing. Yes.
Mr. Cooley, I apologize, but your 4 minutes have passed. Do you have a question?
I mean, I guess my question is, in this context, is it appropriate that the only body investigating this incident is Calgary's police's own internal PSS? There's been no investigation by anyone, and the allegations are of an extremely serious nature. ACERT, we know, did not investigate. Does the Commission believe it is appropriate that the only public body investigating this incident is CPS when they are basically the ones responsible for that violence and wrongdoing? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you for your question and your comments. Chief, I think I'll respond first and then I'll turn it over to you. I do want to say that the Commission has seen the article and has access to it. We've seen the Orchard article regarding the communication between Chief Neufeld and provincial leaders. The law clearly establishes that the police have full independence when it comes to law enforcement decisions and investigations. And therefore, elected officials cannot direct the police chief on how to deal with a specific incident. However, the information in the article does not seem to show that there was political interference in how the University of Calgary protests were addressed. Additionally, we have no insights into or influence on how the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team, ACERT, assures their political independence. So questions about that need to be addressed to the province. In terms of the injuries that you mentioned, we've also clearly heard that people at the university protest have reported injuries that were not reflected in initial statements from the service. And we have followed up with the Chief Neufeld on this disconnect. There is a process for investigating concerns about specific actions by the police. Now that ACERT has looked into whether the injuries warranted an investigation by them, the service's professional standards section is proceeding with the investigations into the complaint that they have received. I'll turn it over to the chief now.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Cooley, for your comments. I guess I would just say this. I want to be super clear that no politician either directed or attempted to influence CPS when it came to our response to the situation at the U of C on May 9th. So that's absolutely false. I would say that Mr. Appel's article that you refer to contains, it's an opinion piece at best, where he has, interpreted communications between others made by others, and he's done a very liberal job of it, I guess I would say. Just to be really clear about the discussions in relation to what you're calling a cover-up with respect to ACERT, I think you'd remember, Mr. Cooley, there was a meeting that was called. I think the three provincial ministers, Public Safety and Emergency Services, Justice, and Advanced Education, convened a meeting after with the students and the community, both in Edmonton and Calgary here. At that meeting, what we heard was that there were injuries that were sustained at those events, but there were individuals who didn't feel comfortable bringing it forward. So that led to the discussion about whether ACERT could be used for that purpose. If people didn't feel comfortable coming to the police service themselves or to the police commission, ACERT might be able to be used in that way. We didn't believe at that point that the information that we were in possession of would trigger notification to ACERT or their mandate. However, we were supportive of the notion of ACERT being used to do a screening to see if there was in fact serious injury that would trigger their mandate. So really it was a two-step piece and an agreement that it would be a review first to determine if in fact there was serious injury that had been sustained. So that's exactly what happened. So the communication I had with the individuals you referred to was really just to confirm that what was agreed to in that meeting was what was going to happen, because there had been a public statement that it was going to be an investigation. So it was just confirming that what had been discussed was going to happen. We had absolutely no influence over ACERT's decision to do X or Y or any of the conclusions that they came to. So I can't speak any more to any of that, but if you're interpreting my communications, that hopefully provides you a little bit of clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We'll go to the next caller, please.
Our next speaker is Ewan Thompson.
Mr. Thompson, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me here. Okay, so I have two unrelated questions. Chair, do you provide consent for me to ask two different questions? They'll both be fairly quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Okay, so the first is for Chief Neufeld, or anyone really on his executive team who oversees digital surveillance. Recent reporting has uncovered that many police departments have contracts with data miner or other companies that operate social media harvesting tools. These have, in some cases, been used to disrupt peaceful protests. Does Calgary Police have active contracts with data miner or other social media surveillance companies? And if so, have they been used in surveillance of private citizens during the protests against Palestinian genocide? And will they be used to monitor private citizens protesting the G7?
So in answer to your question, the answer is no. I can't speak to G7 right now. Obviously, the individuals that are responsible for that aren't in the room, but I can tell you we do not use data miner currently in the way that you've referred. Thank you.
And your next question, please.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chief. Okay, the second question's for the commission chair. So I'm just going to read through some of the Police Act guidelines and guiding principles sections here just briefly, and then I'll ask the question. Okay, so Police Act guiding principles section 1.1 reads that subsection B, policing should safeguard the fundamental rights guaranteed by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Alberta Human Rights Act. Subsection G reads that police officers at all levels should promote a culture of accountability within their roles as police officers. Subsection H reads that policing complaint processes should be objective and transparent and should promote public confidence in the complaints process. Meanwhile, Police Act Section 32.1 reads that a commission may conduct an inquiry into any matter respecting the police service or the actions of any police officer or other person employed by the police service. So commission has now heard a summary of recent reporting describing, despite, I think, the denial of Chief Neufeld, and rightfully so, like I don't think anybody's indicating that the political pressure came from his office. It was in rather going in the opposite direction towards his office, describing what could be a cover-up of injuries inflicted by Calgary police against protesters. Commission itself has been implicated in silencing these questions raised about these proceedings, as Mr. Cooley outlined. Will the chair leverage Section 32 of the Police Act to launch an inquiry into these injuries and alleged disreputable conduct of Calgary Police despite the Alberta government's alleged interference in the ACER review?
Thank you for your question. As I mentioned previously, there's still an ongoing investigation by the professional professional standards section that is still completing their investigation. Also in that, the commission, regarding the last thing you mentioned, commission does have discretion. And as of this point, we have not heard anything that would indicate that we would actually pursue action in that area. Thank you. The next caller.
Our last speaker is Katie Anderson.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson. Ms. Anderson, are you there?
Yeah, can you?
We can. Please go ahead.
Perfect. So hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I should be about 3 minutes to provide some context, and then I'll ask 2 questions. So my name is Caitlin Anderson, and I'm a PhD student at the University of Calgary. I appreciate the work that the commission does in service of Calgarians. Many believe in the work that police do to serve their communities, even as there are challenges that arise during policing. Having a body such as the one you sit on here today to provide oversight is essential to that work and to maintaining safe communities. And so with that in mind, let me introduce another aspect of myself. I'm a victim of police violence. I was assaulted and sustained serious injuries on the night of May 9th during the Calgary Police Service's response to the peaceful protest that was happening on my campus. And so many of you may recognize me as you've heard me say this previously. I came before this commission on May 28th and explicitly stated that I received a concussion. Central to the discussion to the police response that night, and if it was appropriate, is this notion of a serious injury. Whether a concussion is classified as a serious injury seems to be a point of contention. Thankfully, however, we already have clarity around this issue. My friend and fellow activist, Ewan Thompson, who you just heard from, also sustained a concussion and came before this commission on June 26. He asked if concussions sustained by blunt force trauma were considered a serious injury under the Police Act. Police Chief Neufeld, you agreed, clearly stating that it is. So it is stated for the record, Annette Lingell also provided a statement during that meeting that she had received a concussion. Despite this, I've heard over and over again that there were no serious injuries that night. We heard it when Chief Neufeld spoke to the press on May 10th. We've heard it at these commission meetings, and most concerningly, we've heard it from the Calgary Police when on October 29th, they put out a statement that ACERT found that the allegation of serious injuries could not be verified. So I'm here today before you, the commission, asking for help. I take it in good faith that you sit on this body to serve Calgarians and to keep us safe. I'm a Calgarian, and on the night of May 9th, while exercising my charter rights, I was not safe. I was attacked and assaulted by police officers while peacefully protesting. I was sprayed with tear gas, shot at with a gun dispensing pepper spray bullets, and terrorized with a grenade that landed inches from my feet, making me fear for my life. I was bashed repeatedly with bicycles, kicked, and body slams. These resulted in bruises all over my body, a loss of hearing, and is presented with mental health challenges, especially concerning PTSD. But what left the most lasting impact is that while I was standing arm in arm, singing with my fellow peaceful protesters, police equipped in riot gear attacked me with a baton and shield, slamming them into my head. I have spoke before you. I have spoke with and submitted documentation to ACERT, despite not hearing back from them. And so I do not know why, almost a year later, the narrative remains that there were no serious injuries on May 9th. Why has the Police Commission not pushed back on these claims? The mission of the Calgary Police Commission, as stated on your website, is to provide independent civilian oversight, to ensure a safe community, and importantly for us here today, it states that your responsibility is to monitor the public complaints process. Given that, my questions are for the Commission. First off, you and I and Annette had each reported to the Commission that we sustained a concussion on May 9th. Given this, did you pass on to ACERT prior to the conclusion of their investigation, or after learning about that conclusion, that we had reported serious injuries publicly to this Commission? And secondly, will you now and in the future publicly push back on the claims that there were no serious injuries that night? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I think you've already heard me mention this previously, but we've clearly heard the concerns at the approach to these. We've clearly heard that people at the university protest have reported injuries and that were not reflected in the initial statements from the service. We've asked and followed up with Chief Neufeld on this disconnect. And Chief, would you like to make any comments on this?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And thanks, Caitlin, for your submissions there. I guess I would say that the discussion was, I think Caitlin referred to a couple of key dates, May 10th that we were asked. And so that's a question that was asked. Do we have information around serious injury? And on May 10th, we did not. And as I said, there was a subsequent meeting where there was submissions brought forward that there may have been individuals in the community who had been injured, but didn't want to bring it forward. So we tried to create pathways for people to be able to be comfortable enough to bring forward their information and evidence of injuries if they had it. So that's how ACERT became involved. And then I think, Caitlin, you talked about October. So really, I think what we're talking about here is nobody's trying to say you weren't injured. And I think everybody who's received injuries of any kind would find them to be serious. But I think what we're talking about is the definition as it exists, or the guidance that exists around what it means from the provincial government for ACERT's use around serious injury. So that's the determination that ACERT came to, is based on the interviews that they did and any evidence that they were provided by individuals that they spoke to. They came to the conclusion that there was not serious injury based on the definition that we're talking about here now. So I think that's the disconnect that we're talking about. I guess I would tell you this too, Caitlin. We received 9 complaints from different people who were at the protest, and all 9 of those were sent to ACERT and the information that we had so that they could make that assessment around serious injury. Ultimately, in October, they came back and said that there was no serious injury, again, by the definition that they were looking at. And that's why those complaints were returned to the police service, to professional standards, to investigate. So that's ongoing now. Caitlin, you can get updates with respect to yours through professional standards. And I would encourage you that if you have anything outstanding with ACERT, you could also follow up with them. And I'm sure you would get any update from them as well. But, you know, regardless of whether we agree on where it should be or shouldn't be, that's the law. So I would say that it is where it should be. And we're going through and finishing the investigations, and those who were impacted will be updated in due course along the way. So that's it for me. Thank you.
May I ask a clarifying question?
You have 30 seconds, so yes, you can.
What is the definition then of a serious injury, and does a concussion fall under a serious injury?
So there is, for the purpose of the Act, there isn't a definition per se. The government of Alberta does provide guidance on things to consider. So I guess what I would say is I can't give you a clear answer on that. Concussions are things that can be considered in the broader context. But what I've seen is, you know, references to mild concussions, to moral injuries, to bruises and this type of thing. And so all I can say is that ACERT would have taken into consideration whatever they were provided. And ultimately with that and with their expertise, they would have come to a determination about serious injury. So that's what I can offer, Caitlin. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you to everyone for joining us today and for your comments. The public participation session brings us to the end of our agenda. So we will now adjourn the public portion of this month's commission meeting. Thank you to everyone for coming, and I hope you have a great evening. Chief Neufeld and I will move to the podium shortly, where we will be available to answer questions from the media. Everyone is welcome to stay and watch our media availability, but only recognized members of the media will be able to participate. For commissioners and members of the service participating in the in-camera portion of our meeting, we will take a break before continuing. Please keep this room quiet until the media availability is finished. And if you are joining remotely, please remember to rejoin us using the in-camera link. Thank you very much. Can you put the first reporter through, please?
First reporter I'm putting through is City News Calgary. Go ahead if you have questions. Okay, I'm going to try CBC. And finally, I'll try, so here we go. City News declined, so I will try CTV. It doesn't look like anybody wants to ask questions.